Hello everyone, this is Refresh, and I'm here to look at Magic the Gathering's Game Nights product, which says you can play Magic with 2 to 5 players right out of the box. Looking at the back, it says that Game Night is a brand new way to bring the full Magic experience to your friends and family in one convenient box. Choose between 5 decks, one for each of Magic's iconic colors, each including one new card custom built for Game Night, designed for balanced, exciting gameplay in one-on-one or multiplayer battles. The contents are 5 60-card Magic decks, 5 spin-down life counters, 5 life counter platforms, a rulebook, 20 +1/+1 counters, 15 double-sided tokens, and 5 reference cards. And this kind of has like a neat little board game-ish design here that is for 2 to 5 players and at 30 plus minutes. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what's inside. Opening up this pentagonal box, we have a play guide and rulebook, which gives you an overview of the contents and then tells you how to set up the games. Gives you some deck lists and some very basic instructions on how to play the deck. Oh, and look at this. It looks like it gives you a much more thorough rulebook in how to play Magic. And this is actually kind of nice. This is very beginner friendly. It gives you a lot of information on how you're supposed to play a game, how you're supposed to lay out the play area, what all the different elements are. This is exactly the kind of thing that a beginner to Magic the Gathering can find very useful, not only as a reference guide on how to play, but also to learn how to play to begin with. If you don't have such a thing as like Magic Arena or Duels of the Planeswalkers, and it's even giving you some advanced topics that can teach you a little bit about the more complex elements of Magic the Gathering, so that's really cool. And a very in-depth guide on how to play a turn. So this is all very good. I like this a lot. And the fact that there's a glossary at the back that you can look this up. I mean, this isn't a comprehensive rulebook. Obviously, there's just too much to Magic for it to be comprehensive, but I really appreciate that there's so much information in this, and this may be perhaps one of the best physical representation of how to play Magic the Gathering that a beginner can use. And so this is great. I really like this a lot. There is an advertisement for Magic the Gathering Portal, which, as of the recording of this video, does not exist. So, yay! They've really been hyping this thing up, and it still doesn't exist. We get a cardboard punch board with a bunch of punch outs. This appears to be the life counter platforms, which is really much of a platform. It's just a cardboard piece that tells you to put your spin down life counter on it. And is this really something you need? I think the spin down counter does a good job of itself providing the platform and means of noting that it's life. So I don't know how useful this sort of thing is. At least they punch out of the board pretty easily. I guess this is the space that you're supposed to put it. And then you have a whole bunch of +1/+1 counters. I don't know how much I like these +1/+1 counters. Most Magic the Gathering players use dice to represent a number of +1/+1 counters, because if you're putting counters on creatures, you're often putting more than one, and then when you have a bunch of these, you have to count the number of these counters that are on your cards to see how many +1/+1s exist. And I'm not really a fan of this. I'd rather they include 6-sided dice over some cardboard punches, but obviously that's going to cost just a little bit more money. So that goes in there, this goes in here. So this is the insert that it comes with. It has spaces for each of the decks. Unfortunately, it looks like there is not room in this insert to sleeve your cards, because once that happens, this deck is going to become twice the thickness and it won't fit in the bounds of this insert. So I guess the idea is that you don't actually sleeve your cards when you're playing with this, but that's anathema to me, obviously. And here are the 5 spin down counters. So I like that there is this device to hold everything in place, but I really don't like the fact that this comes without space for sleeved cards, despite the fact that it otherwise looks really nice. It's a nice presentation here and it holds all the pieces well, but because it doesn't hold sleeve cards, I'm probably going to just chuck this insert, replace it with a bunch of deck boxes, and then just probably toss all this cardboard because it's completely useless. Let's go ahead and take a look at the decks. So here are some of the double-sided tokens. We have knights and goblins here, and this is one of the reference cards. It gives you a turn sequence quick reference as well as a little bit of information on the statistics of the deck. I don't really know how useful this is. I guess it'll give you a general sense of what kind of deck you want to play, but it's not really a strategy or tip guide, so this is probably the more useful side. And even then, again, this is useful for beginners, but once you start playing, this is going to go right out the wayside. And then you have your cards. It all opens with the major new card that was created just specifically for this game, and it looks like these are very much multiplayer oriented. Half of the deck appears to be composed of M19 cards, interesting, or at least they have the M19 symbol, and then the other half of the deck appears to be made up of cards with the game night symbol in particular. That's quite interesting. Not all of these are obviously standard legal, so it's a curious mix of cards that are here. I do kind of wish that they would have stuck to a particular format so that players, when they play with these cards, are going to be able to quickly look at them and then figure out what their analogs are in the existing format that is current to Magic the Gathering. Or at least, I guess, the cards themselves are much closer to core set cards, and so that does make them easier to understand, but there are some really unusual cards in this batch. More double-sided characters. We have Thopters on this side and more knights on this side. Assemble for battle says you build a strong army of creatures that get stronger by working together. Oh, this is interesting. If you look here, there's a section that says mix and match, and it says that you can divide each single color deck into two 30-card sub-decks, and then mixing and matching them with different color combinations. And that these mixed and matched cards have been made so that you can sort of combine the matching symbol type halves to create different, hopefully synergistic combinations. So that sounds interesting. I don't know if it's going to support all 10 color pairings, but it is interesting that they've made it so that you can easily separate and reconfigure the cards together. So I kind of like that. Rise from the grave, wield the power of death itself to create an unstoppable zombie horde. And we get 3 zombies who are also Goblin, Thopter, and Knight on the back. We have 3 goblins who are also Thopters here. It says, take to the skies, rule the air with a bevy of powerful flying creatures. Then we have a Goblin Thopter Knight on this side, who are also zombies on this side. Green says, grow fear, summon enormous creatures with power drawn from nature. That's the product. I'll be back after playing around with this a bit, and I'll let you know what I think. So let's talk about Magic the Gathering's Game Night, their first of this apparent series. And first of all, I didn't like this thing because you couldn't put sleeved cards in here, and it was ornamental at best, and so I tossed it, replaced it with some deck boxes with sleeved decks, as you can see in here. And I thought that these decks were actually pretty decent for their simplicity. So these are definitely starter decks, but I felt like the decks had some level of consistency in what they were trying to do. And I also appreciated that the guide allowed you to separate these decks based on the symbols here, and then mix and match the halves with the other decks to play different synergies. And it was fun because the decks actually lined up such that there were synergies that they took advantage of between the colors. So you could really mix and match and make a variety of decks. That's a total of 15 because you can do 10 different color pairs as well as 5 monocolor decks. And so I thought that this was a very clever way of providing a bunch of decks and basically putting Magic the Gathering in a box. And I also appreciated all the little counters and the tokens that were also offered, which let players play the game without having to look for too many extra things. The only thing that I kind of wish that was here was a bit more ways of counting life above 20. Not that it happened much in these games because there isn't a ton of life gain in this particular format. But in general, especially when you consider the comprehensiveness of this guide here and the amount of information that it offers you in terms of how to play the game, and also the different rules and the little glossary it shows you with the different keywords, I think it makes this particular set perhaps one of the best ways to introduce Magic the Gathering to anybody. And you can just buy this and give it to them and they can play Magic without having to get anything else. And I found that to be one of the best highlights about this game night product. And so I think that this is a decent amount of fun. I think if you are a Magic veteran, this is going to be a little bit too simplistic for you, but I think for the average non-Magic player or a person that only plays Magic casually, I think that these decks and the different opportunities that they offer for mixing and matching the decks as well, and the simplicity by which you can do so, make this an excellent product. And so I give the original game night a recommendation, especially for those who are looking for a simple Magic in a box option. Let me know what your thoughts were about game night in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can hit subscribe. This was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.